The first time my son's school called to ask why I was standing outside his classroom, I was 32 miles away with both hands inside a deadbolt. I remember that detail because the lock had jammed around my left index finger. When my phone started vibrating in my pocket, I had to ask the homeowner to hold the cylinder steady while I pulled myself free. "Mr. Mercer," the woman on the phone said. "This is Dana Holcomb at Willow Creek Elementary. My son, Noah, was 8 and in 3rd grade there." Dana ran the front office and knew me well enough to recognize my voice, mostly because I was late more often than I'm proud of. "Is Noah okay?" "He's fine. We just need you to come to the office. I'm in Delaware County." There was a pause. "You're not currently in the building." I looked down at the lock spread across the homeowner's kitchen table. "No." Another pause, longer this time. "Are you sure?" I laughed because the question was ridiculous. Then Dana lowered her voice. "One of the teachers saw you outside Noah's classroom about 10 minutes ago." The homeowner glanced at me. I turned toward the window. "That wasn't me. Someone matching your description was standing at the classroom door." "What description?" "Your height. Your work jacket. The beard." I was wearing a brown canvas jacket with Mercer lock and key stitched over the chest. It wasn't a uniform exactly, but I wore it almost every day. "Did anyone talk to him?" Mrs. Alvarez opened the door. He walked away before she reached the hallway. "You have cameras. We're checking them. Call the police." Dana hesitated. "We haven't determined that a crime occurred. A man was watching my kid through a classroom window. He wasn't inside the classroom. And nobody saw him threaten anyone." I pressed my thumb into the cut on my finger until it stopped bleeding. "Keep Noah in the office. Don't let anyone pick him up unless you speak to me first." "Of course. I'm leaving now." I reassembled the homeowner's lock badly enough that I had to redo it. My hands kept skipping steps I'd performed thousands of times. A locksmith learns to think in sequences. Pin. Spring. Cylinder. Plug. If something doesn't turn, one part is out of order. You don't force it. You find the piece that doesn't belong. For the rest of the drive, I tried to fit the call into a sequence that made sense. My ex-wife, Tessa, had a boyfriend named Ryan. He was about my height but clean-shaven and worked at a bank. He didn't own a canvas work jacket. My younger brother lived in Arizona. My father had been dead for 9 years. Nobody else looked enough like me to fool a teacher who had met me half a dozen times. When I reached Willow Creek, Dana buzzed me through the front doors. She stared at my jacket before looking at my face. Noah sat in a plastic chair behind her desk with his backpack in his lap. He stood when he saw me, but didn't run over the way he usually did. "Hey, bud." "Hi, you okay?" He nodded. Dana took me into the principal's office, while Noah remained with the secretary. The principal, Mr. Keene, had already pulled up the hallway footage. Mrs. Alvarez stood behind him with her arms folded tightly. The video showed Noah's classroom door at the far end of the hall. At 10:14, a man entered the frame. He wore jeans, dark work boots, and a brown jacket. "My jacket." He stopped beside the narrow window set into the classroom door. He leaned slightly, putting one eye against the glass. The angle kept his face turned away from the camera. Mrs. Alvarez appeared inside the classroom and approached the door. The man stepped back. For one frame, maybe two, his head turned toward the camera. Mr. Keene paused the video. Compression had broken the face into blocks, but I could still recognize the shape of my beard and the bend in my nose. I'd broken it in high school and never had it set correctly. "That's not me," I said. Nobody answered. I held up my phone and showed them the invoice from the job I'd been working. The homeowner had signed it 3 minutes after the figure appeared. Mrs. Alvarez leaned closer to the monitor. "Could somebody have borrowed your jacket? It's mine. You only have one. I own 3. The others are at my apartment, Mr. Keene looked at me. "Who has access to your apartment?" "Me, Tessa. She hasn't had a key since the divorce." That wasn't completely true. I had changed the lock after she moved out, but I had also hidden a spare in a magnetic box under the back staircase. Tessa knew where it used to be. I hadn't checked whether it was still there in months. Mr. Keene exported the clip and told me he would contact the district's security officer. I asked to speak with Noah alone. We sat on a bench near the nurse's office. His sneakers barely touched the floor. "Did you see the man?" Noah picked at the rubber edge of his backpack zipper. "He looked like you, but you knew he wasn't me. He didn't knock." I frowned. "What? You always knock on the glass." Whenever I came to collect Noah early, I tapped twice on the classroom window before waving. It was something I'd started in 1st grade. "Did he say anything?" "No." "What was he doing?" "Watching." "Watching you?" Noah nodded. "How long?" "He was there before Mrs. Alvarez saw him." "Why didn't you tell her?" "I thought maybe you came for reading day." I looked toward the office. "Reading day? You said you might come." The school had held a parent reading morning 2 weeks earlier. Noah had asked me about it. I told him I would try. A hospital had called that morning because a medication cabinet wouldn't open, and I took the job. Medical calls paid well, especially emergency ones. I sent Tessa a text asking her to tell Noah I couldn't make it. I never spoke to him about it myself. "I'm sorry," I said. "It's okay." Children say that when things aren't okay because they don't want the adult to feel worse. I took him home with me. My apartment was on the 2nd floor of an old brick building in Westerville. The spare key was still under the back staircase. Inside, my other 2 work jackets hung in the hall closet. Nothing appeared disturbed. I checked the windows, balcony door, and bedroom closets. Then I inspected the lock on the front door. No scratches. No tool marks. No indication that anyone had picked it. That should have comforted me. It didn't. Tessa arrived just after 5. She listened while I explained, then watched the school footage on my phone. Her first reaction wasn't fear. It was suspicion. "You were definitely at that job." I turned the phone toward her again. "I showed you the invoice. Caleb, I'm asking because this is strange. You think I drove to the school, stared through the door, then made it back to a job 30 miles away. I don't know what I think. What would be the point? She looked toward Noah's room. You've been upset about the custody schedule. We agreed to the schedule. You agreed after 6 months of fighting it. I wanted more time with my son. You wanted the time. You didn't always use it. That landed because it was true. I had missed 2 Saturday mornings that month because of emergency calls. My locksmith business had been struggling since the divorce. I took every job I could get, then acted surprised when Noah stopped asking whether I would attend things. Tessa lowered her voice. Have you been following him? No. Trying to scare the school into changing pickup procedures? No. Then somebody is pretending to be you. That's what I've been saying. She took Noah home with her that night. Before they left, he stopped in the hallway. Dad, yeah, you should lock the closet. What closet? He pointed toward the narrow utility closet near my kitchen. Why? The other you was standing next to one at school. There isn't a closet beside your classroom. Yes, there is. I had walked that hallway less than an hour earlier. The space beside Noah's classroom door was a flat painted wall. Noah, there's no closet there. He stared at me as if I were trying to trick him. He was holding the door open. After they left, I opened my utility closet. It contained a vacuum, a folded stepladder, and the electrical panel. I closed it and engaged the cheap hook latch near the top. It wasn't a real lock, but it made me feel better. The district security officer called the following afternoon. His name was Grant Wallace. He told me nobody had entered the school through an exterior door during the period shown in the video. What about staff entrances? All electronically logged, windows locked, so he was already inside. We don't know that. The camera shows him inside. It shows a person in the hallway. We haven't established how or when he entered. Grant asked whether I owned any firearms, whether I had made threats toward Tessa, and whether I had ever entered the school without permission. I answered no to all three. Then he asked me to send photographs of my work jackets and boots. 2 days passed without another sighting. On Friday, I was scheduled to pick Noah up from basketball practice at 7. At 6:20, a customer called from a grocery store parking lot. She had locked her toddler in the car with the engine running. I told myself it would take 10 minutes. The rear passenger lock was damaged, and the child had kicked the keys beneath the driver's seat. It took 34 minutes. At 7:06, I called Tessa from my van. I'm running late, she didn't answer. I called the school gym. The assistant coach picked up. Willow Creek Athletics, this is Caleb Mercer. I'm coming for Noah, a pause. Mr. Mercer, yes. You already picked him up. I pulled onto the shoulder hard enough that the van behind me leaned on its horn. No, I didn't. You were here about 10 minutes ago. Where is my son? You signed him out. My chest tightened, but my hands became very steady. That happens to me during emergencies. The rest of the world seems to move faster while my fingers slow down. Call 911, I said. Right now. I reached the school in 12 minutes. 2 police cruisers were already outside. Tessa arrived seconds after me and nearly hit the curb. The assistant coach, Mr. Douglas, showed us the sign-out sheet. My name was written beside Noah's. The signature looked like mine. Not similar. Mine. The loops in the C and M matched the way I signed invoices. Even the final stroke trailed downward because of the missing tip of my left index finger. I'd lost half an inch to a table saw when I was 23, and my handwriting had changed afterward. "Did you see his face?" the officer asked Mr. Douglas. "Of course, and you're certain it was Mr. Mercer, Mr. Douglas looked between me and Tessa. I thought I was. What did he say? He apologized for being late. I checked the time. The man had arrived at 6:54. I had promised Noah 7. The security cameras showed us walking out together. The other me kept one hand on Noah's shoulder. He never looked directly at a camera. Noah did. He glanced backward 3 times. On the third, he raised his hand and tapped 2 fingers against his chest. 2 taps. Our signal. The same pattern I used on his classroom window. He knew. He was telling me it wasn't him, I said. The police issued an alert and began checking the streets around the school. Tessa turned on me in the parking lot. "What is happening?" "I don't know. He looks like you. He signs like you." Noah went with him. He knew it wasn't me. He still left. He was scared, or confused because his father keeps saying he'll show up and doesn't. I wanted to argue. Then I understood. Reading day. Basketball pickup. Both times, the man had appeared where I had said I would be. I opened my text history with Noah. Most of our plans were arranged through Tessa, but I had messaged him directly that week. Saturday. I'll come see your science project after lunch. I had canceled because a restaurant manager lost the key to a walk-in freezer. Tuesday. I'll call before bed. I remembered falling asleep in my recliner with the television on. Thursday. I'll pick you up at 7. 3 promises. 3 empty places. I called Mrs. Alvarez. "Has Noah seen the man before this week?" She hesitated. "He mentioned seeing you near the playground last month. When?" "During recess." "What day?" She searched her calendar. It was the Saturday after I had missed his first basketball game. The police believed we were dealing with a stalker who had studied my schedule. That explanation worked until they searched the school footage from previous weeks. They found him 5 times. He stood near the playground fence. He sat in the back row of the auditorium during an assembly. He waited outside the cafeteria. Each appearance corresponded to something I had promised Noah and failed to do. One of the clips was from a Tuesday night when the school was empty. The figure stood outside Noah's classroom for 47 minutes. At the end of the recording, a narrow door appeared in the wall beside him. It opened inward. The man stepped through. The wall was solid again in the next frame. Grant Wallace came to my apartment shortly before midnight. He had stopped treating me like a suspect. "We checked the building plans," he said. There has never been a door in that section. My son said there was a closet. Grant stared at the utility closet behind me. Why did he say that? I don't know. The hook latch was hanging loose. I had locked it after Noah left. Grant drew his service weapon and opened the door. Vacuum, ladder, electrical panel, nothing else. Then I noticed a rectangle on the back wall. A darker outline in the paint, about 6 feet high and 2 feet wide. The shape of a door. I touched it. The drywall felt cold enough to hurt my palm. From the other side, my son knocked twice. Dad, I tore at the wall with my bare hands. Grant grabbed me and pulled me back. Noah, Dad, he says you're not coming. I'm here. You said that before. The voice was quiet and close, as though Noah had his mouth against the drywall. I grabbed a hammer from my toolbox and drove it through the wall. The first strike cracked plaster. The second opened a black hole between the studs. There was no insulation behind it. No brick exterior. Just darkness. I widened the opening until I could fit my head through. A hallway extended beyond the wall. It looked like Willow Creek Elementary, but the proportions were wrong. The ceiling was too low. Classroom doors lined both sides, each with a narrow glass window. Behind every window stood a version of me. One wore the shirt I had promised to wear to Noah's science fair. Another held the paper cup from the coffee shop, where I had said I would meet him before school. One was dressed in the blue sweater from school picture day. They weren't identical. They were the fathers I had claimed I would be. At the far end of the hall, Noah stood beside a man in my work jacket. The man's hand rested on his shoulder. Noah, I called. Every version of me turned toward my voice. Not together. One after another, beginning with the nearest door. The movement traveled down the hallway like a row of locks turning. The man beside Noah smiled. My smile. He had the same chipped lower tooth. The same gray hairs beneath his chin. But his left index finger was whole. That was the first difference I saw. Then he raised his hand. The fingertip shortened while I watched. He was correcting himself. Grant pulled me away from the opening. The hallway disappeared the moment my face left the hole. He looked through. It's an empty wall. No, there's brick 3 inches behind the drywall. I shoved him aside and looked again. The hallway was back. The man had moved closer. Noah was no longer with him. I climbed through. Grant shouted and caught my jacket, but the fabric tore at the shoulder. I landed on a waxed school floor that gave slightly beneath my boots, like skin stretched over carpet. The opening behind me sealed. I was alone in the hallway. Each classroom contained a different missed promise. In one, Noah sat at a restaurant table across from an empty chair. In another, he stood beside a science display while parents moved around him. In another, he waited in his basketball uniform beneath a dark scoreboard. The scenes weren't memories. I had never been there to see them. They were what my absence had looked like from his side. At the end of the hall, I heard 2 knocks. I followed them to a classroom door. Noah stood inside. The other me waited beside him. The door was unlocked, but it wouldn't open when I turned the handle. The man leaned close to Noah's ear. "You know which one of us comes when you call." Noah looked at me through the glass. I tapped twice. He didn't respond. The other man tapped twice on Noah's shoulder. Noah flinched. I understood then that I couldn't prove who I was by showing him something the other man had already learned. It knew my clothes, my handwriting, my habits, even the private signal between us. Everything except the truth I had kept avoiding. "Noah," I said through the glass. "I didn't miss reading day because of traffic." The other man stopped smiling. "I chose a job." Noah watched me. "I missed your game because I thought there would always be another one." I said the freezer call was an emergency, but it was. "I wanted the money." The classroom lights flickered. The other man gripped Noah's shoulder harder. "I keep promising things because I like the way you look at me when you believe me." My voice shook. "But I haven't earned that look." The man's face began to change. Not melt. Not stretch. It simply lost details. The scar beneath my chin disappeared. The lines beside the eyes softened. The chipped tooth became smooth. "I'm sorry," I said. "I don't need you to forgive me right now. I just need you to come with the dad who finally told you the truth." Noah stepped away from him. The other man opened his mouth. No sound came out. His face had become an unfinished version of mine, like someone had stopped drawing after the general shape. Noah reached for the classroom door. The handle turned beneath my hand. The hallway shook. Doors opened on both sides. Every father I had failed to become stepped into the corridor. Some looked angry. Most looked disappointed. The lights went out from the far end toward us. Noah grabbed my damaged hand. The darkness moved closer. "Where do we go?" he asked. I looked at the classroom doors. Each led to another absence. Then I remembered the wall in my apartment. A place that should not have contained a door. The thing had entered wherever I had left an empty space. Maybe it could also be forced out through one. I chose the nearest classroom and kicked through the thin wall beneath its window. The surface split open. Brick waited behind it. I struck again. The brick became drywall. A third kick opened a hole into my apartment. Grant stood on the other side with his weapon raised. I pushed Noah through first. Hands caught the back of my jacket. Not one pair. Many. The copies pulled me into the hallway while Grant pulled from the apartment. My jacket tore completely down the back. I slipped through the opening and hit the floor beside Noah. The wall closed behind my boots. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Grant stared at the solid brick visible through the damaged drywall. Then he lowered his weapon. "What did you see?" I asked. He shook his head. "You went into the wall. You saw the hallway. I saw you climb into a hole that wasn't deep enough for your body." Noah was holding my hand. He looked at the missing tip of my finger. Then he hugged me. The police found no trace of the man who had taken him. Noah said the other. Me walked him through a door beside the gym and into the hallway. He couldn't explain where it was. The district replaced sections of drywall and searched every maintenance space in the school. There was no hidden corridor. Tessa believed enough of the story to stop blaming me. Not all of it. That was fair. For the next 6 months, I stopped taking emergency jobs during my time with Noah. My business lost clients. I sold the second van and moved into a smaller apartment. I also stopped promising things unless I knew I could do them. If I wasn't sure, I told him I wasn't sure. At first, he hated that. Then he started trusting my yes again. We haven't seen the other man since. But last week, Noah asked me something while I was driving him home from practice. Do you think he was bad? I kept my eyes on the road. Yes, he never hurt me. He took you. He said you made him. I glanced at Noah in the mirror. What does that mean? He said every time you told me you'd be there, you made a place for him. I didn't answer. Noah looked out the window. He wasn't trying to become you, Dad. What was he trying to do? Noah rested his forehead against the glass. He said he was the dad who always came.